Good afternoon, everyone. Caresoft Technology would like to welcome you to our Google Cloud webinar, A Defining Moment, GenAI, Google, and the Empowerment of Federal Civilians in the Digital Revolution. At this time, I would like to introduce our speakers for today. Ostad, Partner Engineer for Google Cloud, and Peter Fisher, AI ML Specialist for Google Cloud, and Caleb Johnson, Vice President of Sales, TTEC Digital. Ostad, the floor is all yours.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for taking time off your day to joining us on this webinar. The discussion in this webinar will delve into the specifics how GenAI is changing the status quo, its implications across various sectors, and what to anticipate as we further embrace this technology. We're proud to showcase TTEC, our esteemed partner, leveraging some of our GenAI tools to deliver exceptional services to the federal civilian space. Together, we're revolutionizing the way services are provided. TTEC's commitment to excellence, combined with our GenAI tools, is shaping the future of service delivery in the federal civilian sector. We're in an AI-driven revolution, whether we like it or not. Steam power brought the Industrial Revolution. Then we have electricity. In 1893, President Grover Cleveland sparked an inspiring spectacle at the Chicago World Fair. With one push of a button, the night was banished, revealing a radiant city of light, a shining tribute to Tesla's brilliance. That paved the way for information technology revolution that we're in now, the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Industrial Revolution 4.0 defines this era, marked with the seamless fusion of humans and technology, enabled by sophisticated processing and generation of language across text, audio, video, and images. GenAI is a paradigm shift in our era that stands to revolutionize all industries. By mastering language generation and processing, it streamlines human-computer interaction, setting a new standard in efficiency. Google is a pioneer in AI. GenAI is presently at the forefront of discussions for us, our clients, and our competition. It's the talk of the tech world. As a pioneer in AI, Google introduced the foundational technology, the transformer, back in 2017. Our commitment to AI community is demonstrated by the fact that we've open sourced more AI technologies than any other company globally. We boast a network of 3,000 researchers and 7,000 publications worldwide. GenAI isn't just our focus area, it's in our DNA. Our aim is not just about innovating, it's about being responsible with our innovations. Customers are not interested in our breakthroughs, but also how we manage and deploy these advances responsibly. Now, navigating the unique challenges of GenAI, we at Google boldly integrate AI into our products with a steadfast commitment to responsibility and information integrity. Watch this space as we develop more resources and tools for responsible AI within our GenAI offerings, rolling out very soon. Now, our commitment to responsible AI spans across governance and assurance tooling to foster ethical AI development and implementation. In 2022, we enriched Vertex explainable AI offerings and introduced novel features in model evaluation, monitoring, and registry for robust data and model governance. Moreover, our open source responsibility AI toolkit is available at no cost for cloud customers or any AI enthusiasts. I want to clarify the importance of understanding a consumer versus an enterprise approach. We all know for GenAI and the buzzword now, the consumer perspective. This is Google's Bard or ChatGPT, where it does a lot of cool stuff for you. You can write a song in the spirit of Elton John. You can have it create your whole travel itinerary. There's one issue, though, with the consumer offering. That data becomes the provider's data, which doesn't work well in the FedCiv space. There's 4 concerns that we have here when it comes to how you control your data. One is information access. You don't want other organizations to know what data you're being trained on. You don't want other organizations to have access to that data. And you don't want other organizations to know about the output. End-to-end sovereignty of your data is really important. The input, the training, the output need to be secure, and you need to control your data. Data control. The other thing that's really important is how you control your data, how you build your data. Fraud and security. A new wave of tech experts are testing these models to make sure they're secure, especially since fraud is a big concern. In the government sector, you have to show exactly how you came to a decision. This is important to making sure everything is transparent and follows the rules. Fourth is about integration into existing data and applications. You want to be able to integrate existing data and content. It needs to be easy to integrate into the existing environments without having to build new connections. So I just want to reiterate here, Google, we're we build enterprise products. That's our bread and butter. So at Google, we respect your data. We do not use your data to train our models, your organization, or your data. Our approach to safety is multidimensional, much like our philosophy of safety and death. The models are designed to detect toxicity to ensure a secure environment for users. We implement a multi-layered strategy fortified with guardrails for prompt engineering, an aspect that's rapidly evolving to keep up with emerging challenges. Our LLM Palm 2 is available in 4 distinct models: small, medium, large, micro, catering to diverse needs. Ultimately, it's your platform to build upon, customize, and innovate. Let's look at our AI cloud portfolio, as depicted here. Now, at our foundation, we have a TPU GPU infrastructure. It's purpose-built silicon designed to support this generation of model machine learning. At the heart and soul of our operations is Vertex AI, our comprehensive machine learning platform. It's home to Generative AI Studio, a host of APIs, and Model Garden. It's crucial to choose the right model for the right job, as costs can quickly escalate without careful selection. This control enables you to train new models and develop new APIs based on technology, steering your projects in the direction you want. The next layer feature is our Generative AI App Builder, where general-purpose developers can integrate Gen AI into applications. Our enterprise search enables you to swiftly index your content using the best of Google search, then augmented with Gen AI. Model building traditionally requires significant time and resources, and constant need to update new information only to compound this challenge. Our enterprise search offers a solution, ensuring your data remains fresh and up to date. Much like Google search, it gives you quick access to the latest information, streamlining the process. Now, one branch that particularly excites me is our conversational AI. Consider a scenario with thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people involved, like in the Department of Health and Human Services. It's complex. For instance, the Office of Minority Health should not have access or information related to CDC. Each agency should have access to information pertinent to them. Managing who can question what content in such an enterprise is vital. That's where these technologies come into play, solving these exact problems at the enterprise level. On top of this, we're building out a set of low-code, no-code applications that make it easy to handle documents, do discovery on catalogs, integrate health information, manage your contact center, all more functional and easy to use for the average business user. For AI practitioners, we make it easy for you to have open access to world-class infrastructure, build the right model, all while keeping your company data private. Developers can now have the easiest way to integrate content and manage conversations. Let's look at our architecture. Now, while the concept might seem intricate, our customers often find it fascinating when I showcase this. What makes it truly vital is its operation within your GCP tenant. From the queries you make to the informed produced, all resides in your tenant, utilizing your security protocols. A significant edge we have in our capability to perform what we have a term called database embedding. This allows you to extract factual answers directly from your database into the LLM. This integrates your content innovatively, and it stands out feature for customers. Utilizing the best of GenAI, we can secure your data while integrating it within your tenant security framework. So GenAI is driving new opportunities. We're reaching a new frontier here. Large models present a phenomenal opportunity for industries to revolutionize and unlock amazing business value. Here's how. Historically, managing and extracting colossal data sets demanded an enormous amount of resources. Now, large models have processed the world's public data, be it text, audio, images, making it readily accessible to businesses via user interfaces. By intuitively understanding humans, large models are simplifying online interactions, enabling companies to engage broad audiences with fewer support staff. The earliest applications are aiding businesses through content generation, whether it's text, code, images, music, thereby enhancing productivity. These foundation models don't need to be used as is. Companies, depending on their level of expertise, have several ways to customize these models and integrate them into their existing ML infrastructures. Let me share a personal story illustrating just how this has impacted my life. My son is dyslexic, which presents unique challenges for him, especially when decoding words. But this is a different perspective, allows him to see the world in a unique way and solve complex problems creatively, in creative ways others might not be able to. Now, with GenAI tools at his disposal, he finds himself on equal footing with his peers. What was once a disability has turned into a superpower, fueling his creativity. Similarly, GenAI can level the playing field for your business for your business against your competitors. It allows you to focus on creativity and innovation while the mundane tasks are automated. Be a pioneer in this revolution, and we at Google humbly aspire to accompany you on this journey. Now I'm going to kick it off to Peter, who's going to show you some of this stuff in action. Peter, it's all yours.
Thank you. So let me know if everyone can see your screen, and please feel free to use the chat. So just like I mentioned, just like Astra mentioned, we have chosen to go to market in GenAI with a consumer focus and also providing additional controls and guardrails for the enterprise. So what I'm going to try to demonstrate to you is how these two things work, and I'm going to walk you through different demonstrations of this technology and how it can be applied. So first, if I start with the consumer, it's very useful to just try to play around with these technologies to get familiar. So this is Google's Bard technology, bardgoogle.com. And one of the things that we want to help people understand is even if you don't have access to Google Cloud or you don't have an account, you can still try to get familiar with GenAI and some of the capabilities. In this case, I asked it to summarize an RFP, a very common use case that probably in federal and state and local and education, we all have to kind of deal with. One of the things I'll do is you won't have to see me misspell everything. So I'll cut and paste a couple of examples just to give you an idea. So I want to summarize this into French. And so I can use and translate this in real time just without even putting the link and into French. Some of the things that we've also tried to do is make it more accessible. So there's the ability to have it dictation, have it read you the response. And if you notice, there's also a way that you can use your microphone to initiate these queries. So if you don't have access to Google Cloud, we really would love you to experiment and get familiar with bardgoogle.com. Just a couple more examples. So I'm going to talk about how we can also add something like a persona. So I want to ask for information in a specific format. So this might be key themes or in an executive format or in a bullet format. And last but not least, I wanted to show how this technology is revolutionary because it does allow you to uplift your skills, up-level your skills. So if you're not a good coder like me, it's great to be able to ask this technology to generate some code for you, and then to also ask it to maybe even cite its sources. So all of this capability is, again, available to the consumer, and I'm going to walk you through how we can then apply it to enterprises, workloads, and cases. So the other one I can do is come right where you work. So this is using our Duet AI capability, all based on the same technology that you saw with Bard underneath the covers, same technology, not the same model, but same technology. So if I want to just simply write an email, I can say, please elaborate and write an email or a thank you letter to the governor of Ohio. So if you notice, it actually picked up Mike DeWine, who is the governor, and it actually then allows me then to insert that. So it makes working with this technology so much easier because you can use it with the tools you are using today. If I come back into the slide presentation, you might notice that there's a little button over here that says help me visualize. So if I wanted to be creative, I can just say create a GenAI bot and it will create an image, and I can then insert that image. I can add a style to it. I can be very, very creative. I'm doing this because I also wanted to point out that there's a watermark there, internal only. So there are safeguards that, again, like Astra said, we're building into this technology with different layers. So at the foundational level, as well as some of the ways that we're using this to generate output and to label them generative AI. So I'm going to show the next kind of use case in this discussion. So we're going to try to traverse this from the top down. So the two areas I talk to a lot of clients and partners about in the federal and state and local space is how easy it is for them to deploy and use this technology. So conversational AI and enterprise search are probably best demonstrated. So I'll try to do that here. One of the things that I was working on during COVID was using virtual agents and deploying them to different websites. And it was highly successful because the agent was available 24/7. The agent could be translated into your language. It was very intuitive. However, a lot of those agents, a lot of that effort really took us a significant amount of time to do what would be considered a competent virtual agent. So there was a lot of massaging that needed to go on to create an agent that was capable. With GenAI, you'll see that all I am doing now is pointing it to a website. And with the GenAI capabilities, it's able to index that website. And because it's so knowledgeable, it's so capable, I don't have to nearly labor as long as I used to in order to create a virtual agent that is this sophisticated and capable. So I'm going to ask it a few questions. What is SNAP? You can see it gave me a summary or a response. Am I eligible for Medicaid? Again, eligibility is a very common use case. It gives me actually a link to actually, if I wanted to apply for Medicaid, give me the details for applying for SNAP. And I'll demonstrate one more thing here. So, and then we can pause and see if you have any questions on the chat. One of the things that I found is, is there someone I want to talk to? Sure. If I need to talk to a live agent, I can actually either pass you to a live agent or I can give you the phone number to call. One of the things that I wanted to point out is things that I would spend most of my time worrying about would be dead ends. So if you provide a virtual agent and this becomes now the new face for your organization, your website, your company, you don't want to have some dead ends where the conversation just goes, I don't know. One of the things that I'm demonstrating here is the generative side of this. So it wasn't exactly sure what that meant, DCYF, but it gave me a link and it suggested that this is perhaps what you're looking for. And so there is the acronym that we can find. Before, I would really have to spend quite a lot of time creating an intent and matching and being able to handle all the different types of permutations of questions that people might answer. I'm going to highlight something else is governance. So if we want to, again, expose this to the public and to citizens, we also don't want it to hallucinate or provide an experience that doesn't have some guardrails. So in this case, while the LLM technology can write a poem, we don't want that experience for our constituents. This technology is also voice enabled. So if you want to call the phone number, the virtual agent is able to handle all of the same interaction via voice. If I get into some other examples, I'm going to show you how easy it is to add some content. So Carahsoft was nice enough to host this meeting. If you notice, this website that I have is using what we call enterprise search, and it shows no results. So really quickly, without a lot of effort, a no-code solution, what I'm going to do is grab Carahsoft's website, if they don't mind, and I'm going to add that website simply by putting in the website, and I can choose either the entire domain, I can choose a subdomain or an actual page that I want to have it be indexed. So simply by adding carahsoft.com to my websites that I want to use, there it is. And if I come back, let's hope this works in real time. There we go. So now I have, as easily as that, I've been able to now expose my website or Carahsoft's website as a virtual agent. Interesting things that I can do is also use human in a loop feedback, so I can allow people to upvote or downvote some of the responses, and that can fill into a nice closed loop kind of system. So if I come back to my analytics over here, I can see potentially maybe there's something wrong with the infobot or the enterprise search virtual agent. I'm seeing a lot of negative responses, and I can take immediate action. All of this is simply out of the box. What's also out of the box is really interesting is I can choose the configuration. So this is a little bit more of the developers, but I can enable safe search, I can enable feedback, and enable autocomplete. So there are ways for you really quickly, without using code, to customize the experience that you would like to expose on your website. And then from an integration standpoint, at the end, you'll see that we actually even generate the code for you to just cut and paste into your HTML. With that, I'm going to show you a couple of other examples because I think folks would like to see some more state and local or healthcare related examples. So I'm going to, again, try not to showcase my spelling. So I'm going to cut and paste some examples here, some questions. So this, we crawled the irs.com, irs.gov, and it allows you to see, an interrogator asks pretty interesting questions. So I can ask a follow-up, and one of the follow-ups would be, can I get it into 2 bank accounts? So again, sorry for cut and pasting, but hang with me. Can I get that in 2 bank accounts? Well, this is what an example of a multi-turn interaction. So it's not just providing FAQs, it's really taking that conversation to the next level and being much more robust in its response and understanding. So as a lot of feedback from some of the virtual agents in the COVID spears, they were great, but they weren't that deep and they couldn't ask that secondary question. In this case, I'm trying to demonstrate, that multi-turn, that more complex interactions can be handled. How about, do I find a plan? So you can help people figure out what the virtual agent can answer. So in that example, you saw that there was info cards that gave you an idea of how the virtual agent, what typical questions the virtual agent can answer. And so here's an example of how do I find a plan, and if I need to, I can ask a follow-up or drill into a particular website. As we kind of traverse through some of these examples, I wanted to give you an idea. Again, this is the back end that TTEC is going to talk about a little bit about. This is the virtual agent builder, so to speak. Slightly technical, but what I wanted to highlight was it's pretty easy. So here is the data stores that I'm telling the virtual agent to use. And it can be more than one. So here's a website, but I can also point it to unstructured documents like PDFs and internal documents. And those, again, become sources of information that the virtual agent uses. Other interesting feature here is I can make sure that on matching no input, please enable a generative fallback. So this used to take us a tremendous amount of time to do, and I can just now, with a click of a button, make sure that the user experience doesn't have any particular dead ends. I'm going to just showcase another really interesting feature because you're going to see a little bit of this as I walk you down my tabs here. I can, with just English or natural language, I can just text in a prompt or type in a prompt, and that becomes something that we call a generator. So I would like to say you're an expert at summarizing a conversation between a user and agent. When providing the summary, and if you notice, I have all of the widgets and dials that I will have available to me in what we call the Vertex AI interface. So taking the capabilities that an LLM has and leveraging those and exposing them through the tools that you might be using today. So if I was to come back to my other ones, I can say summarize conversation. And it will say, sure. I'll summarize the conversation. So gives you a lot of guidelines, whatever. Not every demo always works every time. So there's always something that goes wrong. If I could showcase one other piece that I get commonly asked about is how can I use this against my data? And so one of the things that we can use is we can use natural language, people to ask a question, how many applications are pending this month? So instead of being able or requiring some SQL skills, I can use natural language just for the user to ask me a question. I then generate the SQL behind the scenes and then generate the output. So here's an example. Please give me the top 10 fraud flags and number of claims for each flag. Behind the scenes, exactly that is happening. We're issuing an understanding. We're figuring out what exactly you're looking for, and then the query is actually being executed and hopefully rendered. So here is a description. So this data is stored in BigQuery, which is a database. And then I can also say, would I like to visualize that? Again, another request is being sent to the database, and it retrieves and allows you to create formatting. So the need for knowing SQL or knowing code and knowing how to write code is dramatically less, and it should democratize access to information. So as I wanted to point out, again, this is a very codey example, but for those who love SQL, I'm just pointing out that you can also use this technology directly against your data in BigQuery. And in this case, I'm running a query and asking it to summarize text from actually reviews. And you can see some of the detail. Well, this is a little bit more on the coding side. It just shows you the potential that you can apply this technology, not just at the info bots, but actually apply this against your actual data. So I have an example. So I'm going to showcase, probably talk about, again, we're going to move a little bit lower in the stack. So please stop me if anyone has any questions, or feel free to ask some questions in the chat. In order to understand how this technology works, I think this demonstration has been suggested to me that this is very helpful. So behind the scenes, what is an LLM doing? So as I type different words or different letters, the large language model is trying to figure out exactly what's the next word or what am I interested in. And so you can see there's a faint line there that we would consider a vector. It's a graph. It's a X, Y, and Z axis. And you can see as I type TABL, it down selects that kind of information. One of the things that I think is also really interesting, if I click on a button here, you can see, let's say, domain. You can see it stack ranks the next likely word that you might be interested in. So domains might be the most likely, code might be the second most likely. Well, all of this is very useful so that I can also use this to kind of customize the experience that you want to have. So let's talk about that. So again, we're going to be focusing on more of this bottom layer of Vertex AI and using the foundational models. So first, the foundational models, there's not just one. There's lots of them to choose from. And choosing the right size of model, just like Oscar mentioned, is one of those critical decisions that people can make when deploying this technology. A smaller model that's trained on your data might reflect more of your data and your tendencies and the behavior that you would want than using a larger model. A larger model might be more capable because it has more parameters and it has more knowledge about a wider I guess corpus of data. So choosing the right one for your use case is one of those things that I think is the new engineering for customers and partners. One I think I'll point out is it's not just Google's technology is here. So Lambda and Falcon are open source, BERT, Stable Diffusion. So other open source technologies are also available, making this more of the what we would consider the GenAI platform for you to choose to choose the right model for your use case. If I can scroll down just a little bit, and I'm sorry, I know it's hard to see, but one of the things that I definitely see as a trend is customers and partners being able to build fine-tunable models. These are trainable models that are specific to a use case. So whether it's recognizing a pothole or understanding or detecting fraud, these are models that customers and partners can then build themselves and then use these as repeatable assets across their organization or in their portfolio. You can even whittle these down to specific task, specific solution, like a person vehicle detector for maybe Waze or carpool detection, or occupancy analysis, entity analysis. So that's the new frontier, is I start to think that our foundational models will lead us into more the capability of tuning your own model and then generating very task-specific models. Let's get into some examples. So I'm going to write the worst prompt ever, and it's great. So I'm asking it to I gave it no context whatsoever. I just put in a prompt, and it's a question about rising digital profits as print advertising falls. And it gave me a reasonably good answer. But what I wanted to showcase, if I ask that same question, but I give some context, in this case, I'm giving some governance to the model, saying, I only want you to use these 5 categories. And oh, by the way, let me help you out. I like things like this. Here's an example, and here's the answer. Here's the answer. Here's a question. Here's the answer. So this is a demonstration of few-shot technology. And if I ask the same question here, so as I did in the previous example, so let me go ahead and submit. You can see it adhered to my context, and it also was able to learn from the examples I gave it. All of that is being passed. If you want to see the code, you can see it. You can see what's actually being passed to the model. So there's the code. You can see the context is being passed, as well as the samples or the few-shot examples that I'm going to. So that's an example of providing some sort of governance. Now, if I apply it to some safety, if I do some things like this, block a few, there's a safety filter attribute. So in this case, I asked it to generate some polite curse words, and it did. So apologize if any of them are offensive. I didn't mean that, but what I wanted to show is you can use this to then govern or block some of the responses. So the safety filters are there as another tool, another example of safety in depth for you to govern the responses. So context and few-shot examples plus safety attributes are really quite interesting and capable of controlling toxicity and what we would consider harmful content. Other widgets and dials are there, so these are really fun to play around with. So I encourage people, if you increase the temperature, you're basically giving creative license to the model, so the model can create more examples. It would basically select from a wider sample of, let's say, instead of the top 3, it would select from the top 10. If I don't want that, I can slam it down to 0, and it, in essence, is also a governor. It will only respond with the top answer. So using temperature is, again, another tool that you can use to then match the experience to the requirements that you have. I'll keep on going since this is exciting. If you're a proposal manager for an RFP, I see this example quite a lot. I have a senior engineer that I want to figure out whether this is a good fit for me. I gave it a few examples. I'm going to ask it, is this something that I should be responding to or not? And in this case, I was able to determine, yeah, this is a good RFP to respond to, or this is a good skill set that we have in-house and we can support. Keep on going. How many would love to summarize an RFP? I think I showed that in BARD. Just wanted to show that that is something very capable here in our Google Cloud. So I want to say in an executive format. So I'm going to just add a persona, and you can see how the response changes. So the use of a persona, and I'm sorry that my voice is so bad, and I know I've been talking quite a lot. The use of a persona is, again, another very powerful tool that we can use to then determine and govern and control the responses. In federal and in state and local and education, I think this is probably more paramount. It's top of mind, is how can I use this technology safely and without concern that I'm going to, perhaps respond in an inappropriate way. I'm just going to continue to build on this theme. I don't even need to, again, submit the actual words. I can just point it to a document, and it does that. And I asked it to put it into, again, a bullet format. Just building on this, I also wanted to show from a security standpoint what an interesting thing I can do here from a security standpoint. I can make security, instead of just a security analyst, I can make security something that everyone can be helpful with, and can ask some simple questions. You know what? I think I'm getting hacked. I want to know more about this particular hack, ATP41. So I will then say, what are the steps to remediate that? And I can ask the question, and it even gives me a helpful link. If I need to, I can even look at, says, well, what does Mandiant say, a company that Google owns and uses quite a bit. I know a lot of people in the federal and state and local use Mandiant. Something about a relevant threat. This was the 0-day attack. It gives me some information. And again, it also offers a way for me to remediate that content. Last but not least, I'm getting to my time. I wanted to show that without much work, I'm able to paste in a claim, and a lot of us deal with benefit programs and funding programs, and fraud is one of those that we typically are very concerned about. We want to get the money to the people that deserve it, but we want to also make it harder for the fraudsters to get at some of this money and destroy the program. In this case, I just paste in a claim. And I'm asking the claim, is this claim normal or excessive? And if I give it an example, it evaluated the claim. I didn't have to write any code. I didn't have to write a model. In this case, it interrogated the claim, but it also said, yes, the claim is excessive overall, absolutely. But the cost of the repairs to the home is reasonable. The cost of replacing personal belongings is excessive. So it was that smart with just being able to pass in a claim. Now with fraud, you would typically also want to have a fraud in depth strategy. So maybe this passes your first test, and if it fails, then you can do more interrogation on the fraud claim and subsequent processing. Maybe you'll ask for additional information. You could do some pattern matching. It's quite much, very much as thinking of it as this might be the front door, but you also put in an alarm system, and before they actually can get the money. So you'll build out a pipeline, so to speak, of them to change. Last but not least, again, just pointing it to a website. Am I eligible for STAR? A lot of states have these. Do I own a home? I can say, again, my typing skills, I do. What country do I live in? And in this case, I'll give a country that is a part of the program, and it says you may be eligible. Just giving you an idea, I'm just giving it a website and asking it to use that website as the basis for eligibility. At this point, I'm at my time, so I'm going to stop and look at the chat. I'll put in some links that you can kind of view that kind of take what I just demonstrated a little bit further, and we're always available for further up meetings. So I'll pass it over to TTEC.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Peter. And Peter, as you've been going through this, there's been several questions that have come through here. I know we've only got about 5 minutes, maybe 5 to 7 minutes of kind of content left, but if you want to check out the chat and just see if any of those questions we can kind of answer quickly. I think you definitely covered some of them in your presentation, definitely on some of the kind of the guardrails and kind of safe search, as well as some of the other ones. But then we can definitely address this. I think we're going to have about 10 minutes of time for open questions here. So let me jump into this really quick. Let's talk about how we kind of put this into action, and then we will definitely have some time for Q&A. So for those of you that may not be familiar with TTEC, we are a services provider with Google. We work very exclusively in the contact center and citizen journey, customer journey space. This is our expertise. We've been doing this for almost 40 years now. We work very closely with Google on CCAI, contact center AI, on the generative AI that we've been talking about today, as well as their contact center platform, which is called CCAI platform. We work heavily in the public sector space, a lot around both the federal and the state level, and many of those agencies we've been working with for many years. I think as you have seen kind of this unveiling of a lot of this new technology, and there's been a lot of change in the last few months that's kind of come into this space as we think about how we can start to leverage this type of technology to be able to both kind of reduce the cost to serve our constituents, but also being able to improve kind of the day-to-day employee experience and be able to provide just an overall better consumer experience at the end of the day and how they're interacting with us, right? A lot of the challenges that we see, and this is very consistent, is there's a need to be able to bring in more of that omni-channel execution, be able to expand from being able to just do voice traditionally like we have, and be able to bring in other things like the digital channels, whether it's chat and SMS, and be able to also leverage the data that's coming out of that. Many times what we find is that data is sitting across many, many different places. I think Peter's example from a website standpoint of the simplicity of being able to put Infobot on the front end of a website and being able to let it go across multiple sites at the same time, and then provide you insight into what are people actually searching for, are they actually getting to the answers they're looking for, but then also giving them the capability to go from that chat experience into speaking with somebody if they need to. And so a lot of these challenges, we're starting to find that generative AI and a lot of the tools in Google's CCAI stack, we can solve by leveraging those. And so as we look at kind of where is this being deployed and utilized, what we find is that the access points inside of that customer or that citizen journey are very similar to what we saw within conversational AI. So on the front end of this journey, if you look at it from a virtual agent perspective, many of you may have some form of an intelligent virtual agent that's out there today. Maybe it's been doing some kind of voice, self-service capability, natural language understanding, a chat capability from a chatbot standpoint. What we find though is the access point for generative AI really helps expand the capabilities of those virtual agents. It also drastically accelerates the timeline for us to be able to go and deploy a very, very highly intelligent virtual agent that you can pick up and interact with. We're talking about going sometime from, maybe 6 months to a year to build this very highly tuned, intelligent virtual agent. And now we're taking it down to, weeks and months, a much lower time frame to be able to put that into motion. The next piece of that we see, and if you can kind of imagine it from some of the search capabilities and that chat interaction that Peter was showing, is at the agent assist side. So the idea of taking all of this knowledge and content that you have today that's sitting within the business and be able to ingest that into something like the Infobot or that GenAI bot, and be able to put that at the desktop of an agent so that they can interact with that and be able to find information much quicker and be able to resolve events much faster, right? The other nice piece that kind of comes with that is this idea of the content curation that many groups go through, where you're trying to take operating procedures and PDFs and kind of process flows, and you've got to take that and you've got to put it into a consumable content format, maybe inside of a knowledge base. And now with some of these large language model capabilities in generative AI, we can skip a lot of that content curation piece and be able to just simply ingest that information into the engine and then provide that into the agent's desktop. And at the same time, you're even putting it still on the front end with that virtual agent. And the last piece that I think is really key, and this is where we start with a lot of these conversations, in the bottom right, you look at that CCAI insights. Think about the conversational analytics. So many times there's an exercise, the starting point we want to look at, which is hey, what are those conversation intents? Why are people reaching out to you? What are the opportunities for self-service? And so using some of these new capabilities, we're able to take that, analyze those voice chat transcripts and conversations, call recordings, and use that to teach the model, and use that to be able to determine here's the best places to go deploy these virtual agent experiences, and leverage generative AI to be able to accelerate that time frame, make it more interactive, make it more successful at the end of the day. And so kind of as I was talking about that shift, right, as we got like maybe one or two more slides here for you, many times we're starting at a voice level, right? It's been heavy voice over the last many years. And there's this need, as everyone's excited about using GenAI, to say, well, I want to go deploy this, but there definitely needs to be a strategy around why are we using it and how are we going to use it in the most effective use cases. And so going through the process of kind of identifying those use cases and building a multi-year plan that says, all right, we're going to take these certain types of data and conversations, we're going to move those from voice to other digital channels over time, making it very intentional so that you kind of build that foundational model of what you're doing on that kind of digital transformation, and that it's building on top of itself over time, so that you're also kind of realizing the highest return on investment as you're deploying this new functionality and these new technologies. And so there is a kind of intentional journey that we go on with many of our customers as we start looking at, okay, you want to go and deploy some of these Gen AI capabilities. There's a starting point around things like that conversational design, being able to go and have an automation strategy of how are we going to support this over time. Going through and just capturing a lot of the requirements of why are we going to use this across many of the different agencies, and how can they leverage each other's data, and being able to teach these virtual agents and leverage the AI to actually make that successful. And so part of I think that the theme of the message here is there's a tremendous amount of capability available now, but definitely having a strategy around this and having a partner like TTEC that kind of understands the technology today, but really understands the contact center technology as well, and how to go make sure that you have a seamless experience so that you don't have things like those dead ends that Peter talked about in the experience, but that there is a continuous ability for a citizen, a constituent, to be able to get their problems resolved. And so from being able to go and realize kind of like, where do we start at the end of the day? This is my last piece, and we'll jump into some of the questions. It really does kind of start with some of this, deciding on some of these use cases of where can I go leverage this new technology and make it successful. We kind of talked about some of the access points around virtual agents, and there's a lot of existing functionality that's out there around dialogue flow, contact center AI, and now plugging Gen AI into those use cases to make it more successful. The great thing on building these virtual agents and leveraging Gen AI is that it's not limited to just chat or just a search function. This can be deployed in voice also. And so you're able to really increase the intelligence of those virtual agents that you can deploy, whether it's in the IVR or across some of these other channels that are out there. And the last piece that we didn't really touch on today, but I think it's really key in this, is there's a tremendous amount of summarization capabilities with Gen AI. We see this being one of the biggest opportunities to kind of reduce the average handle time that an agent has to work on different conversations. The idea of taking that live transcript of a conversation, running it through a summarization API that Google provides, and being able to save that information in the right end place, whether it's a CRM or another repository, but really reducing the overall kind of post-call work time that sits out there. We find that there's the ROI on that is extremely significant as you start thinking about taking 2 to 3 minutes potentially out of every conversation that may happen on a daily basis by simply being able to summarize those conversations. So just wanted to provide some ideas on where this can go and be kind of practically applied out there in the business today. And then let's jump into some questions and we can wrap up. So I think we've got several questions here on the right side, and Peter and Osta, feel free to jump in if you've got something specific you want to address, or Brittany, if there's a certain question that we want to specifically talk about, but I can start pulling up these out of the list.
I think the questions were responded by on the chat, but we have some folks that have raised hands, so just give them opportunity to ask the questions. Okay, we'll just start at the top here. I see Johnny, you have your hand raised, so I'll call on you and give you a chance. I don't know if we need to unmute or you can come up. Awesome.
Yep. There we go. Yeah, so I've used a couple of these like AI studios, and kind of the common theme I've seen is that like it's super easy to point and click your way through building. Like you can point to a model, you can set the parameters you have here, and then you can point to data sources. But then when it comes to deploying the agent, it's almost like a test environment, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. But like if you deploy the agent, it wouldn't kind of hang on to those settings. It wouldn't really have the data sources baked into it. And it's not like, okay, let's go to production and throw this somewhere, like on, Slack or Google Chat or something. So is this studio like a playground, or can you actually point and click in 5 minutes, create an app, create a chatbot that's pointing to a model that's going to process a query from a whole bunch of different data sources, like unstructured files or a bucket or whatever?
Yeah, that's good feedback. And I think applying this technology and maybe through POCs and MVPs is what I would advise a lot of folks to do. That's when I think you start to see the rubber hits the road. But in my experience with our technology, and in particular GenAI App Builder, yes, it does retain and will provide immediate access on your data from a website standpoint. Your data, if you upload PDFs and unstructured information, it's also very capable of summarizing and searching those knowledge bases, as well as I think even the unstructured or the structured format. You can apply those agents to structured data. Infobot, or what we call conversational AI, allows you to combine all of those data sources together in one virtual agent. So just kind of letting you know, enterprise search has 3 engines: websites, unstructured, and structured. Very, very robust, and is now private GA. So that capability is ready to use. And if you want, from an Infobot standpoint, to combine data sources into one experience or one agent, then we suggest using conversational AI. The great thing about it is we all can share the same data store underneath. So regardless of whether you use enterprise search or Infobot, we're leveraging the same data stores. So probably a deeper dive maybe for you would help you see how these actually work. But I would say that they definitely are now ready to be used and to be deployed.
Yeah, I would definitely be interested in a deep dive.
The Infobot, the Infobot just wants saying, if I'm doing an extractive search, sometimes the delay is 4 hours. So if I'm asking Infobot to index, say, a particular website, it might, that depending on the domain and how many pages, that might be a pretty exhaustive, a 4-hour thing. But still, it's a lot less than it used to be in terms of time to value and time to production. So just kind of putting that out there.
Peter, I think you answered that question really well. And Gianni, I think there is that kind of next step, which I mentioned in there around like dialogue flow. And that's what we will typically use to create that virtual agent that then you're connecting to your end state connection, right? Where you're going to actually go and connect it to your chat bot or wherever the access point is, but we're leveraging dialogue flow to tap into that GenAI model. And as well, and it may do other things inside of that flow as well, right? So
dialogue flow that he mentioned, dialogue flow is deployed all over the place. And so that is being used today in the field. And that same technology now has behind the scenes LLM. So really quite powerful. And TTEC is very experienced in using these virtual agents. So yeah, it's a game changer.
Yeah, for sure. I see there's one more question here. Eric, I think you got your hands raised, and I'm going to try and see if I can see a bigger list here of everybody that might have their hand raised.
Thanks. So Eric Christensen from SSA, and look, way more questions than we have time for. So my question today is, if a specific agency wants to have time with one or all of you, dedicated time where we can get the right people at the table to ask lots of questions, how do we go about doing that?
Yeah, that's totally fair, Eric. We will make sure that you get our contact info coming out of this conversation. I think there will be a message that comes out from Carahsoft, and our contact info will be in there, but we can definitely set up time with you directly and get the right Google people and TTEC people in there. We'd love to deep dive with you.
Thank you.
Yep, and there's also your account. So if you don't know your account or Google sales rep, you know, then you feel free to send us Carahsoft, and those on this meeting respond. But yep, it would be also helpful if you could, if you know the rep that's covering your account or your partner. That's also another way of getting a hold of us. But happy to help.
Awesome.
And we do have some sessions for those in the federal. We do have a public sector summit coming up, so you'll get a chance to see me and to hear my terrible voice. So if you want, that will be there. And then we have a big one next is coming up. So there's a lot of new announcements coming up at the end of this month. So hopefully you can dial into those too.
Excellent. Well, I know we're pretty much out of time here, so we greatly appreciate everybody hanging around. It's a great audience, great questions. Peter and Osta, many thanks for your excellent presentation. Carahsoft, thank you so much for hosting this and putting it together. So we look forward to seeing everybody on the next session. And Brittany, I'll hand it over to you. I don't know if you have any final items on just kind of what's next and what to expect.
Yeah, thank you, Caleb. Thank you for our speakers for being with us today. I want to thank all of our participants for being with us today as well. We hope our webinar has been helpful for you and your organization.